Welcome to Branching Out, Growing Together, the podcast that explores growth, sustainability, and new opportunities in farming. Join your host, Melanie Jones, as she shares stories and insights from farmers and innovators who are making a difference in agriculture today. And now, here's your host, Melanie Jones.
Well, welcome back to another episode of Branching Out, Growing Together. And for anyone who's been in the industry for any length of time, you probably know the guest that we have on today. If you're new, this is a person you really want to meet and to follow, and that is Kathy Dice from Redfern Farms. Kathy, thank you for coming on today.
I am very happy to be here, and what a lovely introduction.
Absolutely. So we're continuing our focus on women leading the chestnut industry. You're absolutely in that group of women that have been at this for a good while. And I think also you and your husband, Tom Wall, are known for being educators and really helping others that are interested in the industry. So I wanted to start by reading a couple of excerpts from the Iowa Chestnut Primers Guide. So bear with me while I pull this up. So there's a section in this called Chestnuts as a cash crop. And it says a few of the advantages is chestnuts could be grown without fertilizers and pesticides. They can be grown and harvested without expensive equipment. Chestnuts are long-lived, like 1,000+ years, which is insane. So they only need to be planted once, right? Instead of a rotating pine tree crop or something like that. Soil erosion from well-managed chestnut planting should be at least 1,000 times lower than from no-tilled row crops.
Yeah.
In this day and age on our planet, that's important. Here's the part that people get excited about, that chestnuts can be profitable even on a small scale. So a family farm could earn a pretty good living on as few as 10 acres. And then also that chestnuts are really good for rebuilding and strengthening communities. And as we were talking about earlier, there is so much interest and passion about the chestnut movement and getting involved. And gosh, we love this. We love the growth, but there are a few downsides too. And so I want to encourage everyone to take a look at this primer that you and Tom put together. We'll include that in the notes. But give me just your perspective on this exciting industry and where you see it going and where you've been.
Well, I have to say, all those pluses that Tom wrote out in the primer are absolutely true. It is a wonderful crop to be able to grow. It's sustainable, it's good for the environment, and yes, it's amazingly good for communities too, because of the fact that we don't use heavy machinery to harvest our crops. We're using U-Pick, and we're offering a really good wage to local people to come and harvest when we don't have enough customers. So I think our local people are finding out more and more, ooh, do we want to go work for an afternoon over at Redfern Farm, pick up a few chestnuts, make a little cash? That sounds good too. So it is a win-win crop. It does have some downsides, and it doesn't work out for everybody. But if you can grow chestnuts, oh boy, you should really look into growing chestnuts.
Yeah, I agree too. I know one of the downsides is just the startup and the patience, that right it's not instant cash flow, right? Right,
That
Kathy?
is, yes, that is so true. I mean, chestnuts will grow pretty darn fast. You can see your first chestnuts. If you have a good site, if you're taking really good care of them, you could see your first nuts after just like two growing seasons.
Yeah,
But
that's insane. I mean, we grow trees and sell trees and I know y'all do too or did. What we talked
yes,
about
not
what
anymore. Not
okay,
anymore.
so but you've many years of it, and just to have trees in the nursery, maybe on their second season in a nursery, just growing to sell, and they like they have birds on them. That's pretty exciting.
Tom has a
You know,
picture of a one that has some badger set genetics, and it actually had a little chestnut burr, and it's only 6 inches high. And
good grief.
it was like, no, you don't want to do that, little tree. That's not healthy. No.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And we're seeing too, like you said, the U pick is we've been working on selling like a retail kind of a packaging, et cetera, et cetera. But it's just amazing at the number of people once they find out that you have a farm and that U pick might be available, that there are populations of people that we don't have to educate about the chestnut because they're already there. So if you think of someone having 5 or 10 acres and growing that and then going out and seeing what is the local population that might already be just really looking, that is part of the upside of this
Yeah.
industry.
You get to meet, if, especially if you're doing UPIC, you get to meet people who have come from all over the world, and often refugees from Vietnam, Laos, Bosnia, who are have the tradition back home of going out and harvesting chestnuts or going to a local farm and harvesting chestnuts. And when they find out you have chestnuts and you'll let them come to their farm, they get very happy. I
Yeah.
mean, and some of the groups, sometimes people think, well, I want to fit. They were not big enough. They were not large enough. I didn't find it. But other times, like, have a beautiful farm. Thank you for letting us come. Oh, we just had a great time. So,
Yes,
yeah.
and you even think about there's a trend now for like farmcations, going to a
Oh,
farm
yeah.
and or nearby, and just all the ways that we will see the chestnut consumer expand in the US. So that's really on the upside of if you're listening to this and thinking about it, there are so many ways that we haven't fully explored across the US that you can get involved in. And if you are from a country where this is exciting to think there might be an opportunity near you to pick, reach out. Would love to talk to you and just hear your story and all that kind of thing. So okay, well then that relates to the primer. Just a phenomenal piece of information, and I wanted to thank James Nave because he reposted it on his Facebook group the other day, and I saw it, and of course I've read it, but I was like, okay, we want to share that.
And
So
I have to put in a plug here. Tom is planning on writing a supplement to that for people who have already planted chestnut trees and want information on how to maintain them, how to prune them, how to select what chestnuts to keep. Because as you said, chestnuts will live for thousands of years, but most of us planted them at like 20-foot spacing or closer. And as those trees get bigger, the canopy closes up, and you do have to start doing thinning, which means selecting which ones to reduce their size or to take out totally. It's a sad thing,
oh,
but
that's exciting. I want to help you sell that because there's an audience for sure. Um, so another topic that I think is near and dear to your hearts there is at Redfern Farm is agroforestry and just sustainable farming. So what does that mean for a small farmer?
and that's one thing I always find a little weird is agroforestry has so many meanings for so many people. But generally, since you're saying forestry, you're talking about farming with trees. You're growing trees for a multitude of reasons. For us, we're growing trees to produce food. And I like to say ours is a no-kill tree farm. We're not killing the trees to get benefit from them. We're keeping our trees alive and we're harvesting the fruits and the nuts from the trees for people to consume. Our animals are enjoying it too, and we're getting the benefits of that perennial crop, the roots in the ground, the leaves on the trees, the diversity of structure, the diversity on our landscape. Our wildlife are very happy about what we're doing. Our neighbors are happy about what we're doing. We're happy about what we're doing. And the tricky part is selecting parts, the components of your agroforestry, your trees that will grow well on your site, that will be profitable for you, that have a crop that you can market in one way or the other. So site selection and selection of your species is very, very important when you're looking at an agroforestry enterprise.
Okay. And so as far as animals aside from wildlife, do you have them like integrated with the chestnut trees?
We do now. Our trees are now big enough and well established that we're running a flock of sheep underneath them. And the sheep are doing our weed and feed. So their poop and their pee is providing fertilizer for us because we never fertilized very much at all. And now
Yep.
we've got a rotation going on out there. They are rotated in paddocks every single day. So they're moving throughout all our groves. They usually hit every spot about 2 to 3 times a year. They are weeding in that they will eat a lot of the vegetation that forbs, because we're using catodons, hair sheep. And also, they're doing a lovely little job of pruning on the chestnut trees, because when you grow chestnut trees, you have a lot of these root sprouts that come up from the base. The sheep really love the tender little leaves of those sprouts and will eat them, which leaves the bigger leaves of the sprouts, putting energy back into the tree. But because those little leaves got eaten, the sprouts stop growing. So they're doing an excellent job pruning for us and weeding and fertilizing. So we really love our sheep, but we're only able to do this because our son is also living on the farm and he is the shepherd. He's the person who goes out and moves those sheep every single day and
Wow.
takes care of the flock.
Wow. That is so interesting. And uh, is there a point before you pick or harvesting that you move the sheep out of
Yes,
that? Yes. So
absolutely.
tell us about that.
We have to move them out about 4 weeks ahead of when the chestnuts start dropping, just so there won't be fresh manure under the trees. There are different regulations about how big a farm and how you can label your products. But basically, and I can't remember the exact regulations, if you're a small producer, such as us, and where you're selling your product, you have your name, your address, you're making it clear these are your chestnuts, then it doesn't, the regulations aren't so tight about the amount of manure and the type of manure that's on the trees, on the ground where your fruit and nuts are dropping because otherwise they're wanting like a 6 month waiting period of no animals under there. And you'd even have to like remove bird droppings and deer droppings, which is really won't work in
Yeah.
our system because deer have absolute access to our trees. We're using tree shelters to protect our trees from deer, but the deer have no problem coming and munching on the chestnuts through the harvest season as well.
Yeah, and you've created an ecosystem that you love, right? That you know
Oh yeah.
you're taking care of the earth. If anyone has not seen the film Big Little Farm, it kind of reminds me of what you all are doing with just creating this ecosystem where everybody is kind of a winner. But that's a good point that anyone that's interested in integrating animals with trees and farming should check local regulations and know what
Yes.
what what we're all supposed to do because that's important. But it's not like like what I've heard is chestnuts like not like a tomato or a green bean. It's in a shell that has to be dealt with. So it's not like you're just taking that whole thing and eating it that might have touched something it shouldn't have. Uh,
That's true, but you have to also keep in mind the customs and the habits of your different customers vary greatly culture to culture. And after roasting the chestnuts, some of our customers will definitely just eat them straight, put them in their mouth to crack them open. And
yeah.
we'll even do that with raw chestnuts. My husband will do that. And that sometimes makes some of us cringe. You're like, maybe we should wash that. Say, why?
Yeah, that's true. I do
The
that
same
too.
like eating raspberries out in the fields. Like,
Yeah.
oh, what's that on there?
Yeah, exactly. It's a lifestyle. So you all have crafted an interesting lifestyle, wouldn't you say? Like I've heard people kind of talk about that like how long ago did you enter into chestnut farming and live where you're living and all that?
Yeah, that's a story in itself. We are wildlife biologists by training and love. And when we were, and we've always been very, very frugal living because the wildlife biologists don't get paid very much. It sounds like you should, but I was surprised. We're at the poverty level for the first 20 years of our lives, especially when we started having kids. So we've always lived frugally, but we managed to buy 20 acres of very rugged wilderness land. And we started playing around with chestnuts and walnuts and pawpaws, even on this really rugged, not really suitable land. And then our neighbors who thought what we were doing was really interesting sold us some of their rolling land and we got so excited because we could reach this land, we could maintain it, we could mow the trees, we could put the trees in. Tree shelters became available. So we were able to control our deer predation problem on the trees. And we developed Red Fern Farm where it's integrated of chestnut trees, Asian pears, pawpaws, persimmon, hazelnuts, honeyberries, just everything we would try out in different ways. And again, wildlife biologists. So we definitely wanted to incorporate not only allowing wildlife access, but trying to be careful about how we handled pests and problems to do minimum amount of damage to the wildlife. So there isn't a big fence around it. We never could afford it, and we never thought those were really effective. So all critters get to come in and out of our area. We minimize the amount of pesticides that we use. We minimize the amount of chemical fertilizers we use. We don't ban them totally. We do use things like Sevin, we'll use neem oil to control pests and disease problems when they prop up, but we try the integrated pest management technique. It's just right there on that problem specifically for that pest. And we try really hard to make sure our soil is healthy, that our ecosystem is healthy. And we keep our eyes out for pests such as the chestnut weevil that is approaching. And in fact, we have them, we believe, on one part of our farm.
Uh,
Amazingly, it's
well,
that rugged area that we originally put the chestnuts in. We have chestnut weevils there, we think, but not out in our big grove. And we're still trying to figure that one out because there's a lot more wildlife in that rugged area than there is where our customers are picking up every single chestnut.
yeah, it's if it's not one thing and is then another, and I think that's
Yeah.
farming in general, but definitely for an industry that continues to expand in this country. And it's just interesting. We talk to a lot of people, as do you. Some are interested in creating the kind of environment that you just talked about, a farm to live on and just to be at peace and not in the big cities. Others are interested in commercial production, looking at it like that. Others are hunters who absolutely want to pull in, wildlife because of the
I,
trees.
I'm sorry, I laugh at that because in Iowa, chestnut drop season coincides with archery season for deer, but not for gun season.
Oh,
So
okay.
in Iowa, if you plant for deer, you're feeding them. But about the time you're able to go out and shoot them, the deer have eaten them and they've left the area.
So that's perfect for wildlife lovers, and anyway, a more fair hunting is archery, so I guess that works out okay. But anyway, there's a place for everybody, I think, and it's just understanding what your goals are, and that comes back to spacing and long-term planning. And I think when all of us talk to new people, we're asking those basic questions, the inputs, to help you with the outputs. And you've been doing that for a long time. Have you seen an increase in the interest in this industry over, say, the last 10 years?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Big, big. Yeah.
And you all are really kind of known for helping with the education. So what projects have you been working on lately that we can look forward to, aside from the part two of the book?
Well, I want to say we haven't put out any recent videos or publications, but we originally started that because there was so little information out there about what are chestnuts, how to plant them, how to produce with them. And with some of the projects we have started out, as I said, Tom's got that new supplement coming out. But one project we just wrapped up with is with Unity University out of Maine. Tom helped to create a course on agroforestry, and it's centered on creating, I would call it an agroforestry enterprise, but a planting site where you select plants, you evaluate the site, evaluate the goals of the people, and plant out appropriate plants in this area. But that'll be just if you're a student at Unity University, you get to access that
Oh,
one.
okay. That's
Sorry. But we will. We keep meaning to do more videos and get more education out because we both of us just love educating people. Tom would love to talk to people about chestnuts. And when he retired from the nursery, we actually had to have him kind of reinforce that he will give everyone who calls him 15 minutes for free. But then he does have a consultation fee that will kick in. And that was just to minimize him staying on the phone for 2 hours with
oh
people.
heck
And then
yeah.
he didn't have time to go like out turkey hunting or fishing. And he's kind of semi-retired, having laid down our nursery. So we want him to have some time to
Yeah.
go outside and enjoy his life.
Yes,
So
and I know, we can follow you all on Facebook, and it's just fun to see some of the innovations that he's coming up with now that he does have a little bit more time. But I think one of the things that makes great success in farming is that ability to innovate and problem solve. So have you had a lifetime of doing that
Oh,
with the
yes. Yes.
yes.
And lots of ones that didn't work too. Those are the ones that stick in my head. But yes, lots of innovations that have worked really well. I love how we use nut wizards to harvest our crop. That has been great because it's quiet, it's energy efficient. We can send out so many customers with this. We love our nut wizards. That's been yay. Thank you for
That's yeah, that's a great thing. And so you y'all don't really sell chestnuts in bulk, right? Is it all you pick? Is that right?
I would say 80 to 90% of our sales is all you pick. However, we do also pay local people if they want to come out in the evenings, the afternoons, after we know we've got a light harvest by our you pick customers. We'll pay them $1 a pound to harvest chestnuts. We save those up and then we take them to the local co-op run by Roger Smith in Columbus Junction, Iowa, who pays around $4 a pound. So even though we're paying out $1 a pound to get these harvested, we're still making a good profit.
Yes.
So that has worked out really well. And that's where our local people are like, oh, $1 a pound? How fast can I pick a lot
Oh
of
yeah. Yeah, I might be coming out next fall.
these?
Um, I also wanted to circle back. The first time I met you in person was at the Chestnut Growers Nut Growers Association meeting, and that was when I had just started branching out, and I asked Tom if he would be a guest, and so we sat in the lobby of I think the Hampton Inn with little
Yep.
mics on, no video or anything, all kinds of background noises. And so I'm hopeful that he'll have enough time in his schedule early next year to come back and share his passion and vision. It's absolutely a team, and I know from my partnership with my husband here and so many others that it takes a couple of people to really stand up a chestnut business operation, and it's kind of fun to see how you naturally sink into your roles in those partnerships, isn't it?
It helps if you have diverse skills in a partnership like that. Because I always find it amusing that people think I'm the gregarious person, but Tom is actually the people person. And we'll talk and talk, whereas I will be, so I'll spend 5 minutes with you and then I'm gone and I'll be out doing things, getting things done. And I'm the bookkeeper, I'm the math person, I will track those expenses, and I will point out to Tom enterprises that are not working out.
Because
And I see
yeah,
this, honey? And do you have any idea how much time? Well, I only take go 30 seconds to graft a tree. That's true, but how long did it take you to grow this tree? You got to care for the tree. You tend to the graft afterward, and then yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah. It keep
having
you
the
keep
diverse skills is
you
good.
keep each other in line.
Yeah.
So what is your perspective on the health benefits of the chestnut?
Well, it is lovely that it's a low-fat nut because you can eat a lot of these. And I remember one gentleman was who was very promoting chestnuts was like, you can live off of chestnuts for a year and you will have no problems at all because it's got your vitamin C, it's got your high quality protein, it's got your carbohydrates. And I was like, that's kind of interesting. So they are a really nice nut. Now, I'm not a great fan of the flavor of chestnuts because those are pretty bland. I'm sorry. I
Yeah, so
love pecans and hickory nuts, yes, because they got that oil, they got that rich taste. Not your chestnuts. It's like I'm okay. Chestnuts are fine. I'm glad you love your chestnuts, but
yeah, everybody has a certain taste for it.
yep,
Um,
yep. So I will say we have Tom finally ground up a whole bunch of dried chestnuts we had. And so now I have a huge amount of chestnut flour. Don't y'all wish y'all had that problem? So instead of making cornbread lately, I have been making my chestnut bread, which is half whole wheat flour, half chestnut flour. And man, it's good. It is very, very good. And Tom is really enjoying that too. And it's probably a little bit more healthy than our whole corn flour that I used to make. But now I don't have to grow corn anymore because I got chestnuts.
yeah, no, those are the things we need to learn about.
People often ask Brad and Melanie Jones what a UMCA PQK seedling is. The University of Missouri Center for Agroforestry seedlings descend from an orchard with 3 well-characterized grafted cultivars. Peach, Ching, and Cork, the orchard environment generated a seedling population of 3 full sibling families. As an approved growing partner for the university, Brad and Melanie are thrilled to offer the UMCA PQK seedlings from their Kentucky-based nursery, United Chestnut. Visit unitedchestnuts.com for more information about this seedling and others available. Consider subscribing to the weekly blog and tuning into the Chestnut Industry Podcast, Branching Out. That was unitedchestnuts.com.
So Kathy, I've heard you talk about the chestnuts as a food product, and there's a lot of interest in that right now, and especially the health benefits. Tell us a little bit about your perspective of what you share with people about eating chestnuts and the
Well,
diversity.
chestnuts are kind of cool. They're a low fat nut. I mean, really low fat. They're more like a corn in their nutritional makeup. I've had one gentleman who told me that you could live off of chestnuts for a whole year, no problems at all, because it's got vitamin C, it's got all these other minerals, it's a lot of carbohydrates, it's a high quality protein. So you'd be fine living off of these for a year. And I'm like, because I don't like chestnuts flavor very much. They're bland. It's not all that good. But, it's a food that has saved thousands of people through starvation times because we're used to handling the fresh chestnuts, which need refrigeration and be very careful with. But you can also dry chestnuts down so they are this very stable food, like shelled corn. Just keep them at room temperature when they're dried. And you can rehydrate them, make a lot of stuff out of them, including chestnut flour, which my husband has made for me. And I've had so much fun with chestnut flour. I have to say, I like chestnut flour better than straight chestnuts. We make chocolate chip cookies with
Oh,
1/3 of all
wow.
the flour replaced with chestnut flour. They're extra sweet. They have this extra, what is that flavor to them? They're very good, very good. And a chestnut chocolate crumb pie where I make a chestnut crumb paste with butter and chestnuts and then a layer of Nutella on that, then chocolate ice cream.
Oh my gosh.
And then the more crumbled up chestnut pie crust on. Oh yeah, it's good. And then chestnut flour crepes, where no flour at all, just chestnut flour. Those are really good. And recently, my husband had a whole bunch of really old, slightly stale chestnuts that he ground into flour for me. Didn't want to do that fancy stuff with this, so I just made chestnut bread. I used to always make cornbread, which is half whole wheat flour, half cornmeal. Now it's whole wheat flour and chestnut flour. And oh yeah, that's been really, really good. I like that a lot too. It's a little bit sweeter. It's pretty delicious. Yeah.
You got me wanting to get into the kitchen. I think that's a whole nother chapter is I know Brad Russell down in with Chestnuts in the Ozarks just sold some chestnuts to one of the restaurants down there that services a lot of the high-end Walmart executives, and they made some very elegant dishes out of it. And so, can you imagine if all of us went to local restaurants that had creative chefs and started to infiltrate the restaurants with the product? So when we talk about is the supply going to overcome demand?
I'm
Not,
sorry.
not, not, not if we increase demand, right? And
I mean,
that's it.
if you're just looking at the fresh chestnut market, then yeah, maybe 10, 30, 40 years, you could meet the supply of fresh chestnuts. But when you start looking into that dried chestnut flour, because that's a gluten-free food,
Yes,
it's good. And yeah, it's you can grow chestnuts instead of corn. And imagine instead of feeding all that livestock, all corn to all that livestock, you maybe give a little bit of the chestnuts, the little ones in shell to those pigs and to the other
yes,
livestock. I can tell you, our sheep love chestnuts in shell. So yeah, there's a lot of
yeah.
things you can do with chestnuts.
We
Yeah. Sorry.
we can change the world in such a good way. And one of the things I tried a little bit last year, but I need to work on it, is I make my own almond milk instead of dairy products. So chestnut milk. So I've been playing around with that a little bit with the almond. the almond cow. If anyone's interested in that device, it's fantastic. So this is such an exciting topic, and thank you. Maybe possibly share one recipe or so we can put into the blog. Um, but anyway, so we talked to a lot of people that are dreaming, just starting, looking what options they have. Do you have any advice for people that are kind of dreaming of creating a lifestyle that you guys have in the short version?
Oh my gosh. Well, there's so many things. Um, One thing I would say is, and I want to emphasize, if you're partners and you have one partner who's really gung ho about this agroforestry stuff, you gotta make sure your other partner is really invested in this as well. Now, Tom was our visionary. He was the one like, oh, there's chestnuts. Oh, there's pawpaws. Oh, there are persimmons. And I'm like, well, okay, they're native, and I can see the environmental positives of this. And yeah, that doesn't taste all that great. I mean, I was not so enthusiastic, but I am an environmentalist. I'm into wild edible foods. I've been instructing people on that forever. I'm into native ancient technologies. So I had a lot of interest and background that actually meshed wonderfully with this agroforestry enterprise. And so he got
Yeah,
me deeply involved in it very, very much so. But so making sure your partner is invested because I spent a lot of hours in the sun on a mower going around. I don't think that tree's even alive. And I'm mowing around it carefully anyway. So there's a lot of things involved in this life. Being willing to be very frugal because you have that goal in your mind. And we didn't take vacations for so many years, but we were creating a farm where other people want to come for their vacation. And so we had to be realizing and valuing the beauty and the wonder of the things around us. And that's really important. Valuing what you have when you have it,
yeah.
especially as you go along.
That's just living life, just being at peace. And on the subject of partners, Michael Parks was a guest on the podcast the other day, and he was just saying the same thing. And he said, sometimes my back might go out and my wife has to go out and harvest a lot of the chestnuts, or vice versa. So having good partners, whether it's a spouse or significant other or even children, but it takes more than just one person growing these kind of operations, even if it's just 10 acres or. Um, okay, so that's that. And then I wanted to ask it, are there any unexpected things that happen to you that you might share with others that kind of on the road of life and, big wins or big mistakes or any just that kind of thing I think people like to hear about.
Well, there's two experiences I really like to share. One involves a raccoon and Asian pear trees because Tom is always bringing things for me to taste, and I'm like, oh, that's okay. But one day he brought me this ripe Asian pear, and I bit into it, and it was like, oh my gosh, because it was sweet and it was tart, and it had like overtones of cloves and all. But like, oh my gosh, this is really, really good. And he's like, yeah, that's an Asian pear, and there's six more on the tree. It's a small tree, but it didn't overproduce, so I'm going to harvest them all tomorrow. And he went out the next day and a raccoon gotten them all and gone.
Oh,
And I was like, oh, that,
those doggone raccoons, I'll
yeah,
tell
yeah.
you.
And the other experience that I really cherish is we had been like 5 years into the U-Pick, and I'm in the office a lot. I don't get to take people out very often, but there was this one evening, and I was taking out this couple, this family, and the language wasn't too good. The older gentleman in the group was originally from Vietnam, a refugee family. And at one point, I was like, okay, I'm going to go get you some buckets. I'll get you some tools. And they were trying to understand. And the gentleman was like looking down, and we were under a chestnut tree. And I was pointing out, this is a chestnut tree. There's nuts on the ground. And he looked down and he saw chestnuts. And his eyes got really big, and he started picking them up off the ground and just cradling them like this. And and he just looked so happy.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, oh, that's so great. Let me get you a bucket.
Yeah, and how rewarding to know all the work that went into creating that experience. I that's one of the things that I like to think about is the experiences we can present to people around the chestnut, whether it's eating or growing or a different style of life than maybe what you were accustomed to. Just like all those experiences, in this little tiny nut has the ability to do that here in the United States. And there's not too many things in this country like that when it comes to agriculture, you know. So it's really a privilege to have you, having been doing what you've been doing for a long time now, and so willing always, you and Tom, to share with others. And I think that as we build the chestnut community, that's what we're finding, that it's such a supportive community just to help others, even if it means Tom Wall can give you 15 minutes of free advice because they have other things to do at Redfern Farm.
And I would say go to our website because there's videos, there's so much information. And we'll always say, please go to our website first, learn a whole lot there so that 15 minutes, you can get the few questions you're going to have left answered. And they'll be really, really great questions because we hate it when we get the conversation. So, it's Chestnut.
Oh yeah, I know.
About them. I'm like, oh no.
There goes 5 minutes. But anyway, well, I hope that you'll tell Tom we appreciate his work as well. We hope he'll come back and join us and share more information about what you guys are up to. But as far as this series, Women Leading the Chestnut Movement, thank you so very much, Kathy, for all that you do and give.
Hey, it's been a wonderful journey. Sure, it's ending up a heck of a lot better than I thought it would. So
that sounds good. Well, we'll see you soon, and thanks again. Okay.
Pleasure talking to you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Branching Out, Growing Together. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe for more inspiring stories and expert tips. Join us next time and keep branching out.